Hi, my name is Kylie Drury. I'm going to be presenting my score report from the FitnessGram testing administered at Midland Middle School in physical education. So first we need to know who was tested on what, when this occurred, and where it occurred. The students who were tested were 43 sixth graders in my personal physical education class. There are more sixth graders who take physical education, but these were just the sixth graders enrolled in my class. It is at Midland Middle School, the school at which I teach. What was given? The FitnessGram assessment is a required physical fitness test for the state of Georgia, so this was given. It was given in August of 2019 as the pre-test for the beginning of the school year. Like I said, it is at Midland Middle School, which is located in Midland, Georgia, which is part of the Muskogee County School District. So some of you may be asking what FitnessGram measures. FitnessGram has 5 tests within the entire assessment. Those tests are body mass index, which we record using height, weight, and age. Cardiovascular endurance and VO2 max, which is how students intake air and how they convert that as they are exercising. We do that via the progressive aerobic cardiovascular endurance run, which is otherwise known as the PACER run. We also measure muscular strength and endurance. We do this by 2 different types of tests. The first is the 90-degree push-up test that measures upper body strength, and then the curl-up test measures core strength. We also test flexibility with the back saver sit and reach. The demographics of my 6th graders in my PE class are as follows. 74.4% are African American, 16.2% are Caucasian, and 9.3% of my students identified themselves as Latino or Asian. These are the results from my FitnessGram test that I administered at the beginning of the year, which was my pre-test. As you can see on body mass index, 100% of Caucasian students had what we consider healthy BMIs, 75% of African American students had healthy BMIs, and 77% of my other, which is my Latino and Asian students, had healthy BMIs. So BMI was a really good test for us for 6th graders at the beginning of the school year. If you look at our PACER, this is probably our worst results that we had. Only 9% of African American students had adequate PACER scores, while 25% of my Hispanic and Asian students had a very good PACER score, which is still not great considering that's only 25%. And if you look, 0% of Caucasian students had adequate PACER scores. If you move over on the curl-ups and push-ups, those were both pretty good scores, other than my Asian and Hispanic students, which scored 25% on that, which means only 25% passed that portion of the test. And the same is for sit and reach. So our main area of concern is really the PACER, and then which measures our cardiovascular endurance, as well as our muscular strength and endurance, and a little bit on our flexibility, but there's only one demographic that we're truly concerned about for flexibility. So what's the good news? I've kind of touched on this previously, but the good news is the BMI, 75% of students from every demographic had healthy BMIs. On the PACER test, students who identified as Hispanic or Asian scored the highest in cardiovascular and VO2 max. Curl-ups, 66% of students combined from every demographic passed the portion of this test. So 66% of my students did excellent on this curl-up test. The push-up test, 59% of African Americans and 71% of Caucasian students earned passing scores, while on the sit and reach, 86% of African American and 81% of Caucasian students earned passing scores on those portions of the FitnessGram assessment. Here are our areas of concern. Body mass index, or BMI, only 25% of African American students had unhealthy BMIs. So while that sounds like it's only a small number, 25%, if you look at it in the big picture, is not a great number to have as far as students who have unhealthy BMIs. That's really an area of concern because that affects their overall health and wellness. On the PACER test, only 31% of students overall showed adequate cardiovascular health, and 0% of these students were Caucasian students. So that tells me that we do not have a whole lot of cardiovascular strength, that our VO2 max is very, very low. We are not intaking that oxygen and outputting it correctly and usefully. Curl-ups, 44% of African American students did not earn adequate scores on our curl-ups. On push-ups, 75% of Asian and Latino students failed this test. They failed the pretest portion of this FitnessGram. On the sit and reach as well, the same score, 75% of Asian and Latino students failed to earn a passing grade. So those are our areas of concern. What are the next steps that we need to take in physical education? So I've broken it down into what I believe are the areas of most concern. Obviously, cardiovascular health is at the top. So how can we improve this? We need to have more fitness activities that are cardiovascular based. So relays, practicing our pacer run, dodging and fleeing games all increase our cardiovascular endurance. We also need to have cardiovascular based sport education units. Those include basketball, soccer, anything that gets the kids moving up and down the court or the field in order to really increase their lung capacity as far as the VO2 max. What do we need to do for muscular strength and endurance? One way that we can do this is by practicing these tests, by practicing the 90-degree push-up test as well as the curl-up test. These are really the only ways in physical education that we try to strengthen these muscles because we are not weightlifting at this stage. We are not doing anything else. So these practice runs are really formative assessments that we can then use to show the children their progress as we move closer to the post-test at the end of the school year. Flexibility, daily warm-up and cool-down stretches. That does happen in my PE class at Midland Middle School, but also purposeful stretching. We can incorporate those weekly into our lessons. And purposeful stretching is the politically correct term in the school district for what we consider yoga in layman's terms. How can we measure progress at Midland Middle School in PE on the FitnessGram assessments? Now, the FitnessGram assessment is a psychomotor assessment. That has to do with the way the children move, how they take what's in their brain, and make their body perform adequately. So, we are going to use formative psychomotor assessments throughout the year to increase their performance on the post-test. So the way that we can do this is several different ways that I've listed. We can have self-checklists, so students can have checklists that they and go through it themselves as we perform activities. Am I exhibiting the proper form here? Do I feel like my score is getting better on the pacer test now? They can administer those themselves. Also, they can perform self-check rating scales as far as how do I feel like I am doing throughout the year? Do I need improvement? Am I on track or am I excelling in these tests? We can also use peer checklists, which is where a peer would grade another peer as far as are they performing the proper cues? Are they performing the adequate skills necessary to increase their performance for the FitnessGram post-test? We also use peer rating scales, which is the same principle, just on a rating scale instead of a checklist. And then we can also use teacher checklists, which we use a lot in physical education. Teacher will just walk around and check off the students that he or she sees exhibiting the proper protocols, enhancing their performance, and so on. We can also use a holistic scoring system as a teacher. This is only for the teacher's use. The holistic scoring system is more of us just walking around and saying like, okay, we feel like this kid is improving. There's not a set checklist that we will use, not per se in physical education. But those are all ways that we can measure progress via performance assessments for the psychomotor domain in physical education to really enhance these FitnessGram tests so that we see improvements in every demographic and every test from pre-test to post-test. And this is my score report. Thank you.